Shawn McAnalley here with Dr. Bill McAnalley. He is an expert in, looking at what our bodies do to naturally heal themselves, stay healthy, keep from getting sick in the first place, and if they do get it, some steps we can take to feed our bodies with some nutrition to really help it. But what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of history and what they're thinking nowadays, all the big studies on apoptosis and its involvement in the human body and in the processes, in the cells of really protecting them, and how the pharmaceutical mentality seems to be off a little bit still, even though they see it. And there's these studies that show that the plants are really the answer. They still keep focusing on that magic drug. But Dr. Bill's just going to dig into it a little bit, and really it's just apoptosis in just a little bit, guys. And we'll bring you some more snippets of this, and we'll dig deeper into it as we go. But for right now, Dr. Bill, what have you been thinking about today?
Thank you. Well, I love science, love research. I'm a classically trained pharmacologist at Southwestern Medical School. And I know that our drugs came from plants. And some plants actually block pathways. They don't necessarily modulate them, and those are toxic plants.
Right. Not the ones we want to be intaking.
But food plants modulate. Mm-hmm. That is, they help adjust it where it should be. And they're not toxic, but they modulate. The problem, the current approach is to block or enhance pathways. And like when you're treating cancer, and we talk 2 or 3 days about BCL2, and it's involved in half the cancers and about 70% of the breast cancers, some of them more than others. And that's because it is underexpressed. So what they want to do, it's overexpressed, what they want to do is block it. Well, when they block it, then it gets too low. And it inhibits a lot of cells, like in your pancreas, they go ahead and die. That's why you get a lot of autoimmune diseases. You get Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and that's because these cells die too early.
And then as we talked about before, that pathway, BCL2 is the one that says, hey, do not perform apoptosis, do not die. So if we block that, we cause cells to die that shouldn't be dying.
That's right.
Gotcha.
So the approach, if you're a neurologist, chemo is the opposite of what you want. And if you're a cancer doctor, the chemo is what you want to do. You want to stop it. But foods will modulate it. They will help bring it back in. And they don't just work on that one pathway. They work on many pathways at one time. And that's why, like, whenever I was studying aloe, I talked to people about aloe, and they said, well, they knew it helped whenever they had bad sunburn or burned themselves. But it just has too many claims to be possible. Because they're thinking one drug, one disease. One drug, one action. And aloe is a modulator, an immune modulator. And I love, we'll talk about it later, I know we're coming out after I wrote my book, a lot of people around the world are taking ambertose, and they're showing it is truly an immune modulator. It helps Alzheimer's. There's a good clinical study in Florida that we'll talk about. And it cancer. That study we just discussed last.
And that was a product you made back in the 90s.
I actually discovered it in 81.
81.
81.
Yeah, and
But,
it got that name that you mentioned back in the 90s, I remember.
Yeah. Well, we applied for the name, and it took years for it to come.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, 6 years later, it came, and they said, if you don't like the name, you can protest it. And maybe another 6 years. So we were just glad to get an official name that recognized it. Actually, the names are given by the USAN, United Adopted Names Organization. That's
some kind of acronym of some kind.
Yeah, that's run by American Medical Association. They set it up because the same drugs were being sold by 40 different names,
mm-hmm.
and they needed a generic name.
Right.
Everybody knew what it was.
Right.
And in fact, your brother gets a phone book
mm-hmm.
of the latest names of the common drugs. I mean, there's thousands and thousands
mm-hmm.
because everybody that in the pharmaceutical business want to sell whatever's popular at the time.
Sure.
And let's give it another trade name,
mm-hmm.
but they have to use the agreed upon generic name.
Gotcha.
So anyway, I just went through to see what the thinking was, and they're still thinking, and by that I mean MD Anderson, who's who in the cancer world, Boston and Massachusetts, over in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying all we need is to find some small molecules that will inhibit or enhance apoptosis where we want it to. And they're still not thinking modulate.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting closer. I hope that they start doing that. The problem with our food is we eat seeds now. Where used to, we ate the plants or the animals that ate the plants.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started keeping livestock, like China, according to the records, they were doing it 200 years before anybody else was. And then some of Africa started doing it 900 years ago.
Mm.
And when they started caging up animals, they had to feed them.
Right.
So they looked at what they were eating, and then they needed seeds
Mm-hmm.
to grow the plants if there was a drought or so.
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, with farm equipment stuff, we became so efficient at collecting seeds, starting 9,000 years ago, that by the time the pharaohs came around 3,000 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
they had 6,000 years to figure out, maybe we can eat these seeds. So we started eating wheat seeds.
Yeah.
But they had not been genetically modified like they are now
Mm-hmm.
and altered. So what seeds provide is energy. They have they're made by monocots. You can tell a monocot, grasses are all monocots. If you look at the leaves, all their veins are parallel. Whereas the complicated plants that have all the nutrients and that are able to modulate apoptosis, they have a single vein with side veins.
So would that be like broccoli, cauliflower,
Yes.
carrots,
Right.
Sweet potatoes?
All of those.
Yeah, all of those that you
Turnip greens.
Yeah, greens, all the different greens. Those are the ones that provide the nutrients for apoptosis.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And if we just eat the grasses, all we're doing is getting energy.
Right. Which is most of our food, especially the
Yeah.
processed foods.
Right. And if we just get energy, then we're not activating apoptosis. And without activating apoptosis, the cells can't fix themselves.
Right.
Because they need those complex nutrients in different plants that we used to eat all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to eat all kinds of roots. I think it's funny, I was wondering what that rhinoceros horn was for.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was watching a program, and rhinoceroses dig up roots and eat them with that horn. They've got a heck of a plow.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. That's pretty neat. Yeah, the roots, those are, that's what you focused on here, recently.
Yeah.
And all of your new things that you study. It's all these roots and bitters and herbs and all these things.
Here, here's MD Anderson, the National Cancer Institute together recognize that these complex plants, they target apoptosis. And they're able to not only remove cancer cells and keep in mind, you don't have cancer when you have one cancer cell. You have hundreds or thousands of cancer cells every day.
Sure.
And if apoptosis works right, they're removed.
Right.
And you don't have cancer until they multiply and grow out of control.
Right.
So the fact that apoptosis removes a cancer cell doesn't mean that you have cancer. That's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy people remove, as I've said before, around 60 billion abnormal cells. Some of them may be bad kidney cells, bad heart cells, bad lung cells, bad brain cells.
Per 24-hour period?
Every 24 hours. And healthy people.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you're sick, you may need to remove a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they're trying to develop drugs to do that. So, I just love the fact that now we can explain how aloe did so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Because they work on 4 different pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Some drugs work on 6 or 7 different pathways. Some plants.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs target part of a pathway. So, I just wanted to point out the difference, and that's what I thought we'd talk about first today.
Hey, that works. And guys, just so you know, Dr. Bill is talking about aloe because he knows that's what you're familiar with, especially if you're familiar with him. But coming up, you're going to start seeing all of his new research. You're going to see all these new studies, and you're going to see all of the other discoveries that he has made on all these other plants that are in the world that really help our body to go farther. Aloe was just the beginning. And with that discovery, I mean, such wonderful things happened. Lots of people were helped. And, some people weren't, and honestly, it's because something else wasn't there. Something else was missing, And Dr. Bill has continued his studies, and he continues every day on a daily basis looking at what other plants that we've been given can do to support our body. And he'll start talking a whole lot more about the others, but he really wanted to kind of just show you guys what aloe did because he knows you're familiar with it. And he's showing that now there are studies that prove what he always thought in the first place. But guys, there's so many more things out there in this world for us that our bodies need. And we're going to be talking about those in the future. So please stay tuned. And this is for the health of it.